power lines. In Red Dead Redemption 2, there's this thing most of us barely even notice, the power lines. They sit along the roads, cross over the fields, slip through towns, and we just ride past them like they're nothing special. For the longest time, they feel like part of the scenery, the same way fences or trees do, but the moment we actually stop and look at them, they start getting interesting. Because once we pay attention, we realize they're everywhere, and that curiosity kicks in. Where do they go? What are they powering? And why are they even here in the first place? So we do what any curious player would do. We start following them, and slowly the map starts to feel different, like there's a hidden system behind everything, and the wires are quietly showing it to us. From that point on, it feels like the power lines are part of the story we just never noticed before. They're guiding us. Once we start following the power lines, something interesting happens. We realize they're not placed randomly. They keep slipping alongside the rails, cutting through roads, and drifting toward towns like they've got somewhere specific to be. And before long, that little curiosity turns into a habit. When the world feels big and we're not sure where we're heading, we just glance up at the poles and keep moving in the same direction. Most of the time, it actually works. They pull us toward life, stations, towns, factories, places that feel busy. But then there are moments where the pattern breaks. The lines wander off toward open land, stretch across a bridge, and disappear into spots that feel forgotten. No people or lighting, no reason for them to be there. And it throws us off because up until then, it felt like the wires were showing the way. Now it starts to feel different, like the world had plans and didn't quite finish them. The poles start leaning. Some of them are half rotted. A few still stand, but the wires are gone. Every now and then we pass a house that looks like it was wired once, but whatever life used to be there is long gone. Nobody comments on it. The game doesn't explain it. It just sits in the world. Quiet. We can still read the story though. There was a community. Money moved in. Something changed, and whatever promise existed here just faded out. It feels strangely familiar, like all those real towns that grew fast and disappeared even faster. Mines drying up, rail lines rerouted, places getting erased from importance overnight. Rockstar, hidden, pro-trail. As we keep moving through the map, we start paying attention to something new, who actually gets to use all this power. In the big parts of town, the difference hits right away. The nicer streets feel brighter. Wealthy houses have light pouring out of the windows. Businesses stay lit long after everyone should probably be asleep. Theaters, hotels, fancy places, they all look like the future arrived early for them. Then we drift away from the center and the mood shifts. Out on the edges, people are still living by flame. Porch lanterns, little lamps on tables, campfires glowing in yards. Same world, completely different experience. And every once in a while, we run into something strange. A farmhouse wired up from the outside, but inside they're still burning oil. So the line is there, that the technology reached them, but it never really arrived. It almost feels like the world is saying, you're included on paper, just not in practice. And the more we notice it, the clearer it gets. The grid isn't built for everyone equally. It spreads toward money first, comfort second, and everybody else waits their turn. That's not just game logic either. History played out the exact same way. Cities lit up first, rural areas lagged behind by decades. Out here, electricity doesn't feel earned, it feels granted. The last places without wires? After spending so much time around towns, we drift back into the countryside. The game does that thing it's great at. Wide fields, hills in the distance, the kind of scenery that usually makes us slow down for a second. And right when everything feels untouched, the poles show up again. They stand in lines across fields, step over rivers, and keep stretching further than the roads sometimes do. It's strange. The landscape is still beautiful, but it stops feeling permanent. Almost like the land is already spoken for, even if nobody's built anything there yet. At that point, the wires stop being background props. They feel like markers for whatever's coming next. Not progress in a hopeful sense, more like the reminder that this world isn't going to stay like this forever. And yeah, there's something darkly funny about it. Arthur's still out here robbing trains and skinning animals while this quiet, buzzing future keeps sneaking in behind him like, hey, we're building over here now. We use wires to navigate. The more time we spend in the world, the more we start using the lines without even thinking about it. There comes a point where we've been riding for so long that the world starts blending together. We're way off the main roads, the camera's panning around, and for a second, we're not totally sure where we are anymore. Yeah, the map is there, but sometimes opening it over and over kills the vibe. So instead, we just slow down a little and start looking around the actual world. And that's when we notice the wires again. They're out there in the distance, stretching across hills and cutting past trees. We angle the horse toward them and fall in line, almost like we've joined a route that already knows where it wants to go. Bit by bit, things start appearing. First a rail line, then a crossing, then maybe a station or the edge of a town. It feels like we didn't follow directions, we just figured it out. But really, the game's been training us to trust those lines the entire time. No blinking arrow, no big sound cue. Just environmental logic doing the heavy lifting without drawing attention to itself. And the more it happens, the more natural it becomes. We stop thinking about it as a trick and start treating the wires like another part of navigation, the same way we read mountains, rivers, and trails. They follow the railroads. By this point, we've been tracing these wires for a while, and then something clicks. Let's pull the camera back for a second and look at the map. If we start at any major town and follow the poles outward, they don't just wander randomly. Watch this. They start hugging the railroad tracks, mile after mile, pole after pole, like they're glued to the rails. So we ride alongside them for a bit. Every bend in the track, the wires curve with it. When the train disappears into the distance, the poles stretch ahead like they're chasing it. And occasionally, we'll see something interesting. A branch splits away from the main line and crawls toward a town, or a small settlement, or even just a train depot sitting by itself. It's like every spur line is feeding civilization off the backbone of the railroad, and here's where the timeline part sneaks in. This world is set right at the edge of 1900, when telegraph companies and railroads worked hand in hand. Real railroads laid communication lines before electricity was even reliable. Rockstar mirrors that logic perfectly. The rails came first, then the wires followed, like veins attaching themselves to an already built skeleton. Inside the game, that tells us something big. The trains aren't just transportation, they're the spine of the entire world. Power grows around them. Towns grow because of them. And every pole we see is basically saying, if the train reaches here, the future plans to reach here too. Atmosphere and sense of progress. So after noticing how tightly everything follows the rail lines, we start paying attention to something else. Not where the wires go, but how many there are. Let's slow down and look at a street in Saint Denis for a moment. Poles everywhere. Layers of cable stacked above the roads. Lines crossing windows, rooftops, street corners. Like someone stitched the whole city together with black thread. Rockstar also made GTA 5, a game with huge cities, and somehow that world has way fewer visible wires. So why did they flood this one with them? Because of the time period. Red Dead isn't showing modern electricity. It's showing the messy part, the early stage, right when everything was new, experimental, overbuilt, kind of ugly, and trying to catch up with human ambition. If we look closely, it feels almost claustrophobic. Not dangerous, just busy, overloaded, packed with poles. And that does something important. It sells the idea that the world is racing forward faster than the people inside it. Factories, street lamps, business signs, they all depend on this growing spiderweb overhead. In towns like Valentine or Rhodes, the wiring looks lighter, more stretched out, less confident. By the time we hit St. Denis, the city is drowning in it. That's progression. It shows us visually where the future has landed hardest. Power plant reveal. And if all these cables are feeding something, where do they actually end? So we zoom out. We start tracing them again, not from the small towns this time, but backward from Saint Denis. We follow one set along the rooftops. Another disappears behind warehouses. A thicker bundle disappears between factories, tucked along the upper floors like someone tried hiding it. And then we spot it. A brick building tucked into the industrial district. Tall chimneys pushing out heavy black smoke. Metal pipes running in and out like organs on a machine. Lonic Electric Company. If we ride around it slowly, the details start stacking up. The wires don't just disappear into the wall, they're fed through insulators, one after another. Like each line has its own place in the system. Inside, we can't see everything, but the outside already tells the story. Coal goes in, steam gets made, turbines turn, electricity leaves through the same wires we've been chasing across half the map. Nothing about the lighting is free. Every glowing bulb in St. Denis costs smoke, noise, and pollution pouring into the sky. And if we think about the timeline, late 1800s, this tracks almost perfectly. Early cities ran dirty, loud, inefficient plants like this everywhere. What's cool is Rockstar never drags you here in a mission and says, hey, this is the power source. We just find it because we were curious enough to follow the lines. And now the whole grid feels different. Instead of mystery, it feels heavy, mechanical, tied to something real and ugly. So next time we're riding through RDR2, maybe we don't just race past the poles. Follow them. Look where they lead. Because every line out there is quietly telling us something about the world Rockstar built.